Lakeview Hills Estates. It's the home of Steve and Jody Hamilton and their 2-year-old son, Alexander. The couple has been married 3 years. Now, Jody is 6 months pregnant with their second child. Steve and Jody know this area is prone to fires, but for them, the risk of living in paradise is worth it.
In San Diego, where everything is so compacted, there's not too many places where you could have 8 acres on the lake. And so we found that out here.
With every positive, you have a negative, you know, or a set of them, you know. I mean, the water's always a problem. Some years we don't get any rain, so there's that issue. There's the brush fires.
Fires pose a particular danger to the gated development where the Hamiltons live, which has only one route in and out, a narrow road that zigzags up and over the hillside. Despite the fire threat, the Hamiltons feel prepared.
I graded a lot of area around the property to make sure there was no brush. If that stuff gets on fire, I mean, you're in trouble.
On the night of October 25th, the Hamiltons aren't thinking about fire. They've spent the evening celebrating with neighbors.
We went to a Halloween party next door. We had just returned and got ready for bed.
What the Hamiltons and their neighbors don't realize is that a wildfire has erupted just 17 miles away. It was set in a nearby national forest by a lost hunter firing a signal flare. Now it's slowly spreading. By 11 p.m., reports of the blaze have reached the Lakeside Fire Department. Division Chiefs Andy Parr and Ken Kremensky know that strong winds could strike and fan the fire into a raging inferno.
Fire weather forecasters issue a fire weather watch when they think conditions may get to extreme fire conditions. We were expecting a wind event. They had issued a red flag warning.
I went to a high point. I looked down into the San Diego River drainage. I saw the smoke, and I knew it was going to be trouble.
At midnight, that trouble arrives. Hot, dry winds sweep across the land and fuel the blaze.
And once they hit the fire, it was off to the races. Fire was spreading at outrageous rates of spread and moving to the west, southwest, toward Ramona, Lakeside area.
In Lakeview Hills Estates, residents Larry Redden, a retired firefighter, and his wife Laureen wake to the smell of fire.
Our windows were open, and so we got up to check, like we always do whenever we smell smoke out here.
I went outside and out on my deck and looked, and I could smell smoke, but that's not uncommon because you can smell smoke quite often.
Larry said, just forget about it, let's go back to bed.
But about 12 miles east, the wildfire continues to spread from hilltop to hilltop, burning nearly 6,000 acres an hour. The wind whips the fire into towering funnels.
The flames were a lot of times 100-foot, 200-foot tall. There was a lot of fire whirls, fire tornadoes we call them, where the fire actually gets into a tornado state.
This whirling phenomenon creates a hazard for firefighters. By 3 a.m., fire crews realize they are overpowered. They watch with frustration as the blaze sweeps uncontrollably toward Lakeview Hills Estates.
We were trying to evacuate hundreds of people, and it was all that we could do to get out, while the fire was actually chasing us out of the canyon.
Minutes later, Larry and Laureen Redden are awakened once again, this time by their telephone.
A neighbor of mine that lives down the hill, he called me, and it was at 3:22 in the morning, and I looked out the window, and it was unbelievable.
The wildfire is now less than a mile away, cresting the nearby hillside. It's searing a direct path toward the Reddens' home.
Out the bedroom window and the hill behind him, the whole ridge was on fire.
It's just devastating to see that much fire coming our way. And then also the winds had picked up.
It was already racing across the flat above our valley.
Laureen immediately prepares to evacuate. She rouses her parents who live with them, and then she starts rounding up pets. Lorraine's idea is to escape the fire by car, taking the only route out of the canyon.
We have like 3 dogs and 5 cats. My wife was gathering up the cats and the dogs and throwing them in our cars.
But Larry remains calm. His 30 years of firefighting experience kicks in as he tries to assess their situation.
I was still looking, trying to decide what to do. How fast is the fire coming? How many acres approximately are burning?
When a wall of flame is coming at you like that, unless you're in that line of work, you're going to be in a panic.
She's saying, come on, are you coming? And so, I'm going, well, I'm not sure that we want to leave because, there's so much fire coming.
Finally, Larry agrees that their best shot at surviving is to evacuate. The family forms a line of 3 cars and starts out along the snaking road that leads toward the entrance gate. It's now 3:30 a.m. Up and down the canyon, more residents are waking to the smell of smoke and ringing phones as their neighbors spread the warning. A hillside away, the Hamiltons, Steve, his pregnant wife Jody, and their toddler son can smell the smoke.
We got a phone call from my friend and said, hey, there's a fire coming your way. You better think about getting out of there.
But from their vantage point, they can't see the fire, only an orange glow in the sky.
You knew something was coming. You could see it and you could smell it.
With no help from fire crews and no warning from authorities, there's only one path out of the community. Steve and Jody begin packing keepsakes, scrambling to evacuate. But within minutes, they'd lose electricity.
The power went out, and that was kind of an eerie feeling. That signaled to me, okay, get in the car. We're not doing one more thing. We're getting in the car. We're getting out of here.
We were just about to get in the cars, and you could hear a roar. I mean, it was a very distinct, it almost sounded like a jet engine. And I thought, we took up too much time, and I can't imagine that we're going to be able to get through it, because you could see the red glow was in the entire top of the hill, and that's where we were headed.
At 3:40 a.m., the Hamiltons catch up with their neighbors, the Reddens, near the entrance gates. They join other residents and form a caravan of cars, all trying to get out safely.
There were 6 other cars at the exact same time that headed up that hill.
There was a big cluster of vehicles, and nobody was going anywhere.
Larry got to the head of the line, and everybody was falling in behind him. And he hadn't gone any more than, a few yards before he stopped.
At that moment, a raging wall of fire explodes and blocks the narrow road, bringing the convoy to a standstill.
It was like a giant tornado. I could see that there was so much fire coming that there's no way we're going to go through that.
Larry was the guy telling everybody to go back, that the road was closed. The fire's across the road. It's not safe.
Scorching winds push the blaze into a firestorm. Residents are left with 2 choices: turn back toward their homes or face the cresting wave of fire. It's October 26, 2003. By 4 a.m., the Santa Ana winds have stoked an uncontrollable wildfire 40 miles east of San Diego, California. Veteran firefighters have never seen a blaze of this magnitude.
We're used to going, putting fires out and being able to save people and save houses, and this fire was so big, it was frustrating for firefighters.
I knew with a really sad feeling that there were some houses we were not going to be able to get to, and I was very fearful those people had gotten no warning.
Get in the truck! That tree goes up! I want to get out of here!
In the gated community of Lakeview Hills Estates, cars converge at the top of the only road out, trapped behind a curtain of fire. 44-year-old Lorraine Redden holds out hope that help will arrive. But her husband Larry, a retired fireman, knows differently.
I kept thinking this time, any minute, the fire truck's gonna get here. And I told Larry, I said, when do you think they're gonna get here? And he said, honey, they've written us off. We're on our own.
Larry's right. A quarter mile away, firefighters are losing the battle on the winding road to Lakeview Hills Estates. Now, crews are forced to pull back or face certain death. In the meantime, Redden urges his neighbors to head back to their homes.
It was all on fire. There's no just driving through the wall of flame. So if you can't get out, then go inside.
Larry's neighbors, Jody and Steve Hamilton, are among those who take the advice.
Larry was the guy telling everybody the fire's across the road. It's not safe. Go back. I thought that was a good idea.
Steve's wife, Jody, is not so sure. The couple has a 2-year-old son and a second child on the way, and she's concerned for her family's safety. Some neighbors decide to drive back into the valley and take a rough dirt trail to a nearby reservoir. Jody thinks it's a worthwhile plan.
My thought was, if there's a fire coming, you should get down to the water. So I thought, that's the last place I want to be, is in a burning house.
Despite Jody's fears, the family turns back toward home. Up the road, Larry and Lorene Redden are racing a rolling wall of fire, trying to return to their home.
The fire is on us now. It's just not like coming at you in just one little move. It's just like the whole thing is just igniting all around.
As they round their driveway, Lorene realizes their property is completely encircled by fire.
There was no way we were going to escape it. We were going to try, but it was so big. It was like, where could we possibly get out of it?
Larry's plan is to keep everyone safely inside and let the wall of fire roll over the house. His only hope is that the tile and stucco structure will protect them from incineration. Redden prepares his home, closing doors and drawing the window blinds. Lorene and the rest of the family group together in the living room. As the wave of flame reaches the house, Lorene can hear it roar across the tile roof.
The sound that the fire makes when it's, sucking everything in its path, into it, it's deafening. I was just trying to convince myself that, God was here and we were protected.
Larry, meanwhile, knows that defending his home's perimeter is the family's best prospect for survival. As he waits for the bulk of the fire to pass, he puts on his old firefighting gear and prepares to venture into the blazing yard.
You have to wait for this main body of the heat to blow over. You can't go out and fight the fire while this firestorm is coming at you.
The fire is still a half-mile from the home of Steve and Jody Hamilton. Steve tries to prepare for the onslaught.
He was gathering buckets of water, and to me, taking too much time doing that. My thought was get in the car, just get down to the water.
Jody still wants to head to the nearby reservoir with the others. Steve tries to convince her that the narrow path is too treacherous.
An 8-foot wide trail with 8-foot high brush on each side of it, as dry as a bone. That's not a very safe situation.
Jody panics. She loads 2-year-old Alexander and the family dog into her SUV, determined to leave her husband if she has to.
I started to drive to the reservoir, and I got down to the bottom of our driveway, and I thought, I don't want to die and leave him, and I don't want him to die here.
It was a rather hysterical time when she was convinced that that would be the best place to go.
And then I saw him run out of where he was putting out some fires. And he ran to the car and he said, let's not go to the reservoir.
Steve has another idea. The family will drive to a dirt flat near their house where the brush has been cleared and try to dodge the flames inside the SUV. Hamilton jumps into the driver's seat. The terrified family races toward the clearing. At that moment, the fire crests the hillside 100 yards away. Jody sees an unforgettable sight.
It will be etched in my memory forever, seeing that fire glow the second before we saw the flames just coming down at us.
By the time the family reaches the clearing, they are surrounded by flames. 2-year-old Alexander shrieks at the soaring inferno.
He knows the word hot, and he was saying hot, hot, and pointing outside.
50-mile-an-hour winds whip across the landscape. The fire pulls in oxygen and creates its own whirlwind, stirring up fire tornadoes.
They were 40-foot walls of flame coming at all sides. And there was these like tornadoes of fire around us.
They were just sucking up and destroying everything in their way. The power that they have and the sound that they make is like a jet engine whining.
Steve races the vehicle back and forth, dodging flames. Suffocating heat and smoke begin to fill the car.
The smoke in the ash was so thick, I thought that would kill us. There's just no way to describe what that was like, except for if there was a hell and that I could picture, that's what I would have pictured hell to be like.
Before dawn on October 26, 2003, near San Diego, California, and a firestorm is raging. In a remote hillside neighborhood, families are trapped in a landscape of flames. The blaze has just passed over the home of Larry and Lorene Redden. Luckily, their stucco house did not catch fire. Larry knows they are not out of danger. Spot fires on their property could still spread to the house. Redden and his family form a fire brigade, pouring buckets of water from their swimming pool around their home's border. Down the road, Steve Hamilton, his expectant wife Jody, and their 2-year-old son Alexander are in their smoke-filled SUV, still dodging flames. Jody and Steve are both concerned about their young son, who has grown suddenly quiet in the back seat.
He went from being very animated to there was nothing. I mean, he wasn't moving. And so at that point, I thought he had died.
I think we might have woke him up or shook him and, to make sure that he was not unconscious, but he was just sleeping.
Then, almost as suddenly as it descended, the raging firestorm passes. A half-mile away, Larry and Lorene Redden's home is still intact.
The sky started to get light, and I thought, we made it.
At 6 a.m., Larry Redden and his father-in-law make their way down the winding road to look for survivors. Just outside the neighborhood gate, Larry makes a horrific discovery. He finds the burned-out shell of a neighbor's RV and a body inside.
You still think about, maybe I could have prevented these people from turning around and heading on out of here.
3 more victims are found on the road to the reservoir, incinerated when flames overcame their car. For the first time, Jody Hamilton realizes her family might have died too if Steve hadn't stopped her from going.
That could have been us, because had I taken my son down to the reservoir, we would have died along with my neighbors.
I did what I thought was the best thing to do. At least we're here.
For 10 days, the fire continued to burn, charring nearly 275,000 acres, the largest wildfire in California's history. In all, 15 people would lose their lives.
I think a lot more people could have died, and fortunately, a lot of them made the right decisions. So we were very lucky.
What steps should you take if you're unable to leave your home because of a wildfire? We'll tell you when the Storm Stories returns. Take if you're unable to leave your home because of a wildfire. Contact 911 immediately and let them know that you are trapped at your location. Then follow these steps. Close your shutters and heavy drapes. They can block radiant heat. Take down sheer curtains, which might combust. Place a garden hose, buckets of water, and a ladder around the outside of your house. This gives firefighters quick access to spot fires on your roof. Take cover in the most interior part of the house until the fire passes. For Storm Stories, I'm meteorologist Jim Cantori. Your local forecast is next.
This is the worst storm in the history of